Welcome to this video in which we will solve an entire past paper question together, which is from May-June 2014, paper 22. You'll have 90 minutes to complete it on your actual exam, and you make sure that you round, if the accuracy is not specified in the question and you have a non-exact answer, that you have to give it to 3 significant figures or 1 decimal place for angles. Now, before we start, it's important to say that all the credit goes to IGCSE Cambridge, because this is their exam. We're just here together to solve it. Okay, I am Mr. John from explainingmaths.com. So let's turn the page and have a look at the questions we're going to get. So the first question says calculate, and it's for 1 point, so just the answer will do. If it's for 2 points, always make sure to give some sort of working there, but this is just the answer. So they're going to check, is he or she able to use a calculator properly. So the cube root of 16 equals, and then you divide that by 1.3 squared equals. Now you're going to get a non-exact answer. And I suggest that you write the entire answer down. You're going to get 1.491030828. And then you round that to 3 significant figures, because that's non-exact, so that's going to be 1.49. But as I said, write this one down first, because in some occasions that will give you a full score already, even if you make a mistake with rounding. Okay? Full answer first, then you round. Moving on, question 2, write 569,000 correct to 2 significant figures. So the 5 is the first significant figure and the 6 is the second significant figure. And the 6 will go to a 7 because of that 9 next to it. So it is 5 and the 6 becomes a 7. And then you have to put in the zeros, the 0 placeholder. So we're talking about 570,000 people or monkeys or whatever they are, correct to 2 significant figures. Question B, write the same number but now in standard form. So standard form, and I explain all of this in more detail on my website, explainingmaths.com. Standard form, the integer 5 point, always directly followed by a point. Then the rest of the numbers, 6, 9, times 10 to the power, and then you have to count how many places did you move the decimal point. So the decimal point used to be there, so you moved it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places, so it's times 10 to the power 5. 5.69 times 10 to the power 5. Good, moving on to question 3 already, simultaneous equations, and that is also a guaranteed question on your exam. So if you study it, you know you're going to get it, so you'll be alright. Most of you prefer the elimination method, so that's what I'm going to do. Looking at it, 2x minus y equals 7, 3x plus y equals 3. I can eliminate the variable y, because the coefficient is the same, but I have to be slightly careful. Do I have to plus it or do I have to minus it to eliminate y? And if you do that properly, you notice that you will have to plus it. Because if I add those 2 equations, I'm going to get minus y plus y, which is 0. I have eliminated y. If I would have minused it, minus y would actually be minus 2y. So always take care with elimination method, solving simultaneous equations. Do you plus it or do you minus it? Alright, so if we continue, 2x plus 3x, that will be 5x. The y is eliminated and 7 plus 3 equals 10. So x equals 2. So that's your value for x equals 2. And then you substitute that in one of the 2 equations, doesn't matter which one, to get your y value. So I'm going to take the second equation, you may pick the first one, it doesn't matter. 3x, so 3 times 2 plus y equals 3. So y equals 3 minus 6, so y equals minus 3. There we go. So I've done a few steps in one. 3 times 2 is 6, so y equals 3 minus 6, 3 minus 6, minus 3. And if you substitute both values in both equations, it needs to be true, and if so, then you have done it properly. Okay, let's turn the page and go to the next question. Now that's a right angle triangle. The hypotenuse is 8 centimeters. We have an angle here of 28 degrees. This is a trigonometry question for 2 points. So you're going to get a point for your workings and a point for your answer. Calculate the length of AB. So that is this side. Now let me put a little X there to help me. What do I prefer? To, at the top, write down so, ka, toa, because that reminds me of the three ratios, the sine, the cosine and the tangent. Now if I'm standing in the angle, they're asking me for my adjacent. Okay, and they're giving me my hypotenuse. So the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Now look, which ratio do you choose? Adjacent, hypotenuse, the middle one, the cosine. So you write down, to get that first point in, the cosine of 28 degrees equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse, x over 8. Rearranging that formula is going to give me x equals 8 times the cosine of 28 degrees. And that equals, and now I get my calculator, I didn't need it before, cosine 28 equals, times 8 equals, and I'm going to write my entire display, 7.063580743. Now that is not accurate, so I have to give it to three significant figures, 7.06. There you go. But please write down all the numbers first, because even if you make a mistake with rounding, in many occasions you still get a full score if they see this. Okay? Also make sure to check, does it make sense? 7.06, yes it does. It needs to be less than 8, but not a lot less. Because if your answer does not make sense, perhaps your calculator is set to radians. And you got to make sure that your calculator is set to degrees, because we're talking about degrees. Okay. Moving on to question 5. There we go. What is going on in question 5? I see some sort of line there. Beautiful. The equation of the line L in the diagram equals 5 minus x. Now I am already going to say minus x plus 5, because I'm so used to write equation of lines in gradient intercept form. Okay, that makes the most sense to me. So I'm just switching them. The line cuts the y-axis at P over there. Yeah, that's my y-intercept. Write down the coordinates of P. Okay, now my x-coordinate is 0. There you go. And my y-coordinates, I can look at my equation. The y-coordinate is 5. Gradient intercept form. That's the y-intercept 0, 5. For 1 point, doesn't mean it's an easy question. It means there's not a lot of work involved. Write down the gradient of line L. That also, by the way, write down means there's no working. Just write it down. For 1 point, write it down. It's right in front of you somewhere. What is the gradient? Well, the gradient is always the coefficient of your x term. If you have written it in this format, what is the coefficient? It is -1. Write down. There's no working involved. Let's go to question 6. Alright, welcome. Question 6. The mass of 1 centimeter cube of copper is 8.5 grams. Corrected to 1 decimal place. Okay, so they already rounded it. Complete a statement about the total mass of 12 centimeter cube of copper. And then they say, well, that total mass is going to be bigger or smaller to a particular amount. Sorry, bigger or equal, I should say, to a particular amount, but smaller to another amount. For 2 points, 1 point here, 1 point there. Now, what type of question is this? This is upper bound, lower bound. Okay, so what is the lowest possible volume? Now, then first we take the lower bound of 8.5. So you do not multiply it by 12 yet. Take the lower bound first. And how do you do that? And I explain this in more detail on my website. Like all questions, I explain that in a lot of detail on my website, explainingmaths.com. 8.5, you write it down, correct to 1 decimal place. So we're going to write down the next decimal and the next decimal. All right. Now my lower bound is the number between 8.4 and 8.5. So that's going to be 8.45. And if you have problems finding this number, then add them and then divide it by 2. What is the upper bound? That is the number over here, which is 8.55. Exactly between 8.5 and 8.6. That's the upper bound. All right. Now to find the lower bound of the volume of 12 centimeter cubed, I multiply the lower bound by 12. So 8.45 times 12. All right. I'm going to grab my calculator for that. We are allowed to use it, so use it, but only if you have to. Times 12. 101.4. Now that is the lower bound. You do not then start rounding that number, or you do not take the lower bound of that answer. No, you take the lower bound at the beginning, times 12, خلاص, that's your answer. Same for the upper bound, you take it at the beginning, 8.55, multiplied by 12, because that is for 1 centimeter cube, we're looking at 12 centimeter cube, so 8.55 times 12 in your calculator equals 102.6. There you go, that is the upper bound. Question 7, write the following in order, smallest first. Okay, so this is the smallest, that is the largest, for 2 points. Now in order to compare those numbers, you need to decide, I'm going to either write them all as percentages, decimals or fractions, and most of you do decimals. That's what I will be doing. I think that's easier. Square root of 0.1 equals in my calculator. And I'm going to write down those decimals, 0.3162, just the first 4, that will be enough. You get points if you do this properly, okay? That is your first point. If you manage 43 divided by 201, if you manage to do that correctly for all 4 numbers, that's your first point. But you got to write it down, of course. There you go. 2.5%, what is that as a number that is 0.025. I'm just going to put a little slash in between. Yeah, that is 2.5 divided by 100 percentages. And 0.2 is already written as a decimal. There you go. That's 1 point already, 50% of the score. Now I've got to put it in order. So I've got to look at place value. And I have to start with the smallest. Yeah, but you can start with the largest if you want, but you just got to write it there. Okay, let's start with the largest. We all have a 0, so they're equal in that. So we go to the next place value, a 3, a 2, a 0, and a 2. So which one is the largest? That is this one, because it has a 3. Now, you do not write down 0.3162. You have to write down the original format, square root of 0.1, largest. Now I also already saw the smallest one, because this is a 2 and that's a 2, but this one is a 0. That makes that one the smallest. So I do not write down 0.025. No, I have to write down 2.5%. Alright, there we go. Now I have to decide for those other 2 numbers. Perhaps you want to put a little line through it. We have had those. I have to decide for the 2 remaining numbers. Okay, which one is larger and which one is smaller? Well, yeah, they both have a 2, so you go to the next number, that's a 1 and that's a 0. That makes this one larger. So 43 over 201 goes here, because we go from small to large, and 0.2 go there. Okay, question 8. Without using your calculator, work out, and they give you this expression. Write down all the steps of your workings. Okay, make that a little bit bigger for you. There we go. Now, of course, considering you have a calculator next to you, you are allowed to use it to check your final answer. Or if you are stuck, perhaps to give you some inspiration of how to continue. But you have to write down all the workings. Now, first of all, 5 over 6 minus. We've got to work out those brackets. But multiplying fractions, this is a fraction, but that is a mixed number. So when you multiply fractions, you want both of them just as a fraction, so you're going to turn the mixed number into a top-heavy fraction, 3 over 2, yeah? 1 times 2 plus 1, 2 plus 1, 3, 3 over 2. All right, that's step 1, you have to show it. Step 2, 5 over 6 minus, now work out those brackets, and multiplying fractions, you multiply the numerators, you multiply the denominators. So that is going to be 3 over 4. There you go. Now, adding or subtracting, in this case fractions, then the denominator needs to be the same. It's a 6 here, it's a 4 there. So they're not the same, so you have to manipulate it so you can do the subtraction. And guys, this is for 3 points. It doesn't mean it's difficult, it means there is some working involved. Alright, what is the common multiple? That will be 12. Yeah, so if I multiply that first fraction, yeah, top and bottom by 2, and that second fraction, top and bottom by 3, yeah, then I'll have a common denominator. Now there are other ways of doing this, okay? I'm not saying this is the only way, There are other ways of doing this, but this is how I do it. Minus 9 over 12. So that is going to be 1 over 12. Now you're going to grab your calculator and you're going to check, is that true? And yes, it is true. So well done to you. Next question, please. Fantastic. Question 9 already. We are almost approaching half of the exam. Okay, so after this page, perhaps, chill a little bit for a minute, have a sip of water, and then you can continue with the rest of your exam. Question 9. At the beginning of July, Kim had a mass of 63 kilograms. And at the end of July, his mass was 61 kilograms. I wish that was true for me, by the way, because I always gain weight over the summer. But okay, Kim doesn't. Calculate the percentage loss in Kim's mass for 3 points. Again, doesn't mean it's difficult. Means there is you have to show workings. Okay. The percentage loss or percentage decrease, as I explain on my website, explainingmaths.com, that is the change in value over the original times 100%. So what is the change in value, or the change in mass in this case? 2 kilograms over. What was the original mass? So how heavy was Kim originally? Well, that's 63. Okay. So originally she was 63 kilograms times 100%. All right. Equals. We're going to write down all the decimals first. 2 divided by 63 equals, I'm using my calculator now, times 100 equals, so that is 3.174603175. So that corrected to 3 significant figures, 3.17% decrease. Fantastic. Okay, well done, Kim, for losing weight. Moving on, we have a formula there, V, like a volume or so, equals a third AH. Find V, how much is V when A is 15 and H is 7? That's for 1 point, so you don't have to show working. However, why not show some working? A third times A, so times 15, times H, so times 7. So if you work it out, 15 times 7 equals, divided by 3, or times a third, equals 35. There you go. Make H the subject of the formula for 2 points, so you have to show working. The subject of the formula, or isolate H, so it has to say H equals, and then all the rest. Alright, so what do we do first? Well, let me write the formula down here. Several ways of doing it. You could divide both sides by a third first, or times both sides by 3, to get rid of that third. So 3V equals AH. Okay, there are several ways again of doing this one. This is just one of the methods. So to get rid of that A now, you divide both sides by A. So 3V over A equals H. So now H is the subject. So I'm going to write down 3V over A equals H. Okay. Question 11. So why not have a sip of water during your exam now? Look around you, relax for a minute, and then we move on. I'll see you there. Fantastic. I hope you have regained some energy and some spirits. Yeah, it's all about confidence and good spirits, life in general, also your maths exam. So let's move on. Question 11. Anita buys a computer for $391 in a sale. The sale price is 15% less than the original price. Calculate the original price for 3 points. Guys, I explain this, I emphasize on this type of question on my website a lot. This is not an ordinary percentage question. Now for 3 points that would be too easy. This is what we call a reverse percentage question. We have the new price after the discount. What is the original price? And then you need to realize, okay, what percentage of the original price is this new price? Well, we got a 15% discount, so the sale price is 85% of the original price. Alright, so the original price, the only way you can find it is 391 divided by 85 to get 1%, and then you times that by 100. So I grab my calculator, 391 divided by 85 equals times 100. And then you will notice you're going to get 460. Now the difficult thing about this type of question is to identify that we are talking about reverse percentage. Okay? If you subtract 15% from 460, you're going to get 391. So that 391 is the price after the discount. Okay? So it's 85% of the original price. So divided by 85 times 100, 460. Yeah? That's why it's worth 3 points, because you have to identify that and then work it out. Solve the equation again for 3 points. Yeah, what can you do? There's so many things you can do. So many different routes to follow to solve that question. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger for you. So 3 over 2x plus 1 over x plus 1 equals 0. Well, we don't really like fractions, do we? So how am I going to start? I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to move one of the fractions to the other side. Okay. Again, there are more ways of doing it. This is just one of them. So then the sign changes. Minus 1 over x plus 1. Now I have a fraction equals a fraction. That's it. So then I can what we call cross multiply. Okay, so we do 3 times x plus 1. 3 times x plus 1. Put it in brackets first, yeah, because otherwise sometimes people forget to multiply that 1 by 3. Equals 2x times minus 1. Alright, so 3x plus 3 equals minus 2x. Then we start moving, if you like. So let me move the minus 2x to that side and the 3 to that side. So then we get 3x plus 2x, which is 5x. I'm just skipping a step now, equals minus 3. Yeah? The sign changes. 3x plus 2x minus 3. And we divide both sides by 5. So x will be minus 3 over 5. And if you have some time left at the end, what are you going to do? You're going to grab this number, plug it in the equation, and you're going to substitute it, and then see if that is going to equal 0. Okay, question 13 already. Question 13 says, w varies inversely as the square root of x. When x is 4, w is 4. Find w when x is 25. So this is inverse proportion, and yeah, questions like this, inverse and direct proportion, they follow a particular format. Okay, inverse proportion, as you have learned on my website, it is y equals a particular constant over x. Okay, that's inverse proportion. But what do you do? What is your first step? Well, your first step, by the way, is to write this down. So your second step is to replace y and x for the variables they mention in the question. They say w varies inversely as the square root of x. So w equals a particular constant over the square root of x. Okay, well done. That's already your first point out of 3. Now we have to find the value of that constant first before we can actually answer the question. And how do you find the value of that constant? By substituting the two values they give to you. So they say w is 4 when x is 4. So k is the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So k equals 8. There you go. Okay, then the formula for this particular question is w equals 8 over the square root of x. And now we can finally answer the actual question. What is w when x is 25? So w equals 8 over the square root of 25, which is 8 over 5. Yeah? Which, if you like, you can write down as 1.6. Fantastic. So do not forget to do the square root of x. Sometimes students forget, yeah, or they square it, but it very clearly says square root of x. Next question, as you can see, a question about vectors. There we go. Make it slightly smaller. Vector geometry. Let's see what is going on. OPQR is a trapezium. Okay, that means that they are parallel, and O is probably the origin. With RQ parallel to OP, yeah, that's what we just said, RQ to OP, and RQ, they say, equals 2OP. So RQ, where's RQ? Sorry, RQ equals 2OP. Okay, so this one is twice as long compared to OP, yeah? And if O to P has a little letter there, P, that means from R to Q, twice as long, so it's going to be 2P. But vectors, the direction is important. So make sure you there is a, no, that's not a vector. Sorry, that's because they're parallel. That's not a vector arrow. No, 2p, but that is in this direction. Okay, so make sure you have that very clear. Okay, moving on. O is the origin. OP is P. QR, or sorry, OR I should say, is R. Okay, do you see how I analyze the question before looking at the actual question they want me to answer? So first I have a proper look at the information. M, they say, is the midpoint of PQ. So it's exactly in the middle. So let me just put a line here and a line there. That reminds me that PM is the same length as MQ. Find in terms of P and R in its simplest form PQ. So from P to Q. Okay. Now, can I go directly from P to Q? I have no information there. Rather only then that M is the midpoint. So I cannot go directly from P to Q. So I take a bit of a detour and I go from P to Q in this direction. Yeah, taking this route. Yeah. So from P to Q, I first have to go from P to O. And that vector is minus P. Yeah, because the direction is important. Then I go to R, so plus R, and then from R to Q it is plus 2p. Plus 2p. Now you have to give it in its simplest form, so 2p minus p is p plus r, so p plus r. Okay, or if you like, r plus p. Doesn't matter. 1 point. Moving on now to the second part of this question, they ask OM, so from the origin to M, the position vector of M. So find in terms of P and R in its simplest form OM, the position vector of M. Okay, now to go from O to M, I first have to travel to P. As you can see, there's a little P there, so I'm going to write P plus, and M is the midpoint we said. So if PQ has vector P plus R, we've just found that out in the previous question, so PQ is P plus R, then PM is half of that, because that is exactly in the middle. So I'm going to say plus a half P plus a half R. Yeah, because M is the midpoint. In its simplest form, because this is going to give me 1 point, in its simplest form, so collecting the like terms, 1.5 P plus a half R. Good, vectors. Moving on to question 15. Let's find out what they want from us there. A nice question about matrices. We have a matrix M, 4, 2, 3, 5. Find M squared. Now, a mistake some students make is that they square each individual piece of data. But M squared means M, the matrix M, multiplied by itself. Okay, and multiplying matrices, it's not difficult, but it sometimes takes a bit of a while, and you need to know what you're doing, of course. So 4, 2, 3, 5, multiplied by itself, 4, 2, 3, 5. There you go. Yeah, this is how I multiply matrices, as you can learn on my website, explainingmaths.com. Let me just write down the order of this matrix, a 2 by 2. And the order of the other matrix, which is also a 2 by 2 matrix, it has 2 rows, 2 columns. Now we are able indeed to multiply them because those inner numbers are the same. And my solution will be of order 2 by 2. Okay, so the solution is going to be also of order 2 by 2. There we go. How do you multiply matrices? Yeah, as you know, 4 times 4 plus 2 times 3. Yeah, so 16 plus 6 for this piece of information, which is 22. There we go. Moving on to this piece of information. It doesn't matter in which order you do it, but I'll do it. This piece of information now. 4 times 2 plus 2 times 5. Okay, so 8 plus 10, so 18. There you go. I'm not going to write it all out now. Yeah, if you do not know how to multiply matrices, go to my website. I have loads of free videos there for you. Okay, this piece now, so we're dropping one. 3 times 4, 12 plus 15, 5 times 3, so 27. And that last piece is going to be 6 plus 5 times 5 is 25, so 31. Fantastic. There you go. That's your solution. Perhaps you want to write that here. 22, 18, 27, 31 for 2 points. Then we have to find the determinant of m. That's only 1 point, because that is quite easy. Every matrix, you only have to do that for a 2 by 2 matrix, by the way. And if you say in general that's A, B, C, D, then the determinant is AD minus BC. So these two multiplied by each other, AD, take away these two multiplied by each other. So in this case, AD, so 4 times 5, and I got to take away BC, 2 times 3, so 20 minus 6, so that is going to give me an answer of 14, the determinant. There we go. Moving on, factorize completely, and completely is important, says we have to really get rid of that highest common factor. So first of all, I see some common factors there, 4 and 6, so they're both even. Let's take the 2 out, okay, and I'll put some brackets. No, what am I doing? Sorry, I need some more space, of course. So I'm going to take the 2 out, leave some space, and put the brackets there. Then the 4 becomes a 2, the minus, and then 3. Yeah, because 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. Okay, completely, I'm not done yet, because p squared and p, so they both have a p in common. So p squared becomes p, and that p will have disappeared because now it's in front of the brackets. And q squared, so they both have a q in common, so you put a q in front, there'll be a q left here, and this one will have disappeared because it's there now. So if you write it down properly, it's going to be 2pq, opening bracket, 2p minus 3q. Now, sometimes slightly confusing these questions, so just check yourself. Is there still a common factor between 2p and minus 3q? Because you have to do it completely, otherwise perhaps sometimes you forgot something and you have to take something else out. But there's no common factor. Then you expand it and then you should get your question again. So 2pq times 2p is 4p squared q. 4p squared q, there you go. 2pq times minus 3q minus 6pq squared, and there you go. 2 points, great. This one clearly you have to factorize it by grouping. So you look at the first 2 terms and at the last 2 terms. Now what is the common factor between u and 4t? There isn't any, so let's just put a 1 in front of it, u plus 4t, there we go. And what is the common factor between those other 2 terms, ux plus 4tx? They have a common factor x, so I'm going to take x out, plus x, and inside the brackets I then get u plus 4t. And that is great, because that is what you should get, because when you are factoring by grouping, then inside those brackets you should get the same 2 terms, u plus 4t here, and indeed u plus 4t there. Fantastic. This is 1 point. How do I get my second point? So factorize it completely. You write down u plus 4t, and one time you have to multiply that by 1 and the other time by x. So 1 plus x goes there. Fantastic. Let's go to the next page. I'll see you there. So question 17 is about indices. Okay. The first question, simplify 3,125t to the power 125 to the power of fifth. Okay. Now 2 points, because you're going to get 1 point if you do it properly for the number, and another point if you do it properly for the t to the power 125. What do you need to do? If you expand those brackets, it is 3,125 to the power of fifth. Okay. And t, and then you have to apply the third law of indices now, to the power 125 times 1 over 5. Okay, that's the third law of indices. Check my website, explainingmaths.com, where I explain all those laws of indices in more detail. Okay, 3,125 to the power of fifth. Your calculator will do that for you. It's actually the fifth root of 3,125 fractional indices, and the answer to that is 5. So if you write down 5, you have a point. But your calculator will do this part for you, just don't forget it. Then this one, t to the power 125 times 1 over 5, so 125 divided by 5 is 25, so it's going to be t to the power 25. That's your second point. There you go. Find the value of p when 3 to the power p is the same as 1 over 9. It's only for 1 point. So perhaps some people do that with trial and error. I'll write down a different way of doing it. You can rewrite, that's wrong, sorry. That p should not be there. It should be 3 to the power p over there, equals 9 to the power minus 1. So I'm going to rewrite that 1 over 9 as 9 to the power minus 1. I'm going to put some brackets around that. And then I realize that 9 is the same as 3 squared. So I'm just rewriting that 9. So if I then again apply the third law of indices, it says 3 to the power minus 2. 2 times minus 1. The base is the same. So the indices then have to be the same. So p equals minus 2. Now that's actually quite some maths for 1 point. So trial and error is probably what they want you to do for 1 point. Minus 2. Find the value of w, if we continue again for 1 point, when x to the power 72 divided by x to the power w equals x to the power 8. So that is second law of indices, x to the power w equals x to the power 8. Where the second law of the indices is if the base is the same, then you subtract the indices, equals x to the power 8. Yeah, so 72 minus w equals x to the power 8. So 72 minus what is 8? So that is going to be 64. Yeah, because then it's going to say, if w is 64, it's going to say x to the power 8 equals x to the power 8. Okay. Next question. Question 18 for 4 points. And again, I want to be really clear. When you get a lot of points for a particular question, doesn't mean it's difficult. It just means you have some work to do. Okay, you have to show workings. And it also doesn't mean that you have to have all 4 points before starting on it. You can get 1 point here, perhaps another point there, and maybe that's it. Yeah, but that's still 2 points. That's better than leaving it blank. What does it say? It says the two containers are mathematically similar in shape. Okay, that's very important, of course. Yeah, there's a particular scale factor. One pot is a particular amount of times larger than the other pot. The larger container has a volume of 3,456 centimeter cube. I'm going to write it down. V equals 3,456. And the surface area, it continues. All right, the surface area is 1,024. The smaller container, it says, has a volume of 1,458. And then indeed, find the surface area of the smaller container. Okay. Now with similarity, I need to find the scale factor. Okay. I have a volume here, I have a volume there. But you need to realize that the smaller volume, 1,458, if you multiply that by the scale factor, you're going to get the larger volume. But that is not entirely correct. Because you only multiply it by the scale factor if you're talking about lengths. But if you're talking about area, you have to do the scale factor squared. But we're talking about volume, so we have to do the scale factor to the power 3. And again, on my website, I explain that in a lot of detail. So k to the power 3 is 3,456 divided by 1,458. Yeah, I'm just going to plug it in my calculator. 3,456 divided by 1,458 equals. And that gives me a lot of numbers. I'm not going to write those down. So I'm just going to say now that k then, so the scale factor equals the cube root of 3,456 over 1,458. So in my calculator I do now the cube root of my answer equals, and then it gives me 1 over 3. So the scale factor is 1 over 3. There you go. I'm not done yet, because they're not asking me what is the scale factor. They're asking me, okay, what is the surface area? Area. All right, so the surface area, let's call that question mark, the surface area, times the scale factor squared, yeah, because we're talking about area, equals the surface area of the larger container, 1,024. There you go. Well, the scale factor is 1 over 3. Squared equals 1,024. Okay, so I have a very old calculator here. So 1 over 3 squared equals, and then you do 1024 divided by that equals, and then you're going to get 576 as an answer. There you go. So your surface area question mark is 1024 divided by 1 over 3 squared. 576 is your final answer. Great. Now perhaps you had problems with that question, but you can still get some points in if you try. Okay, and volumes and for similar figures is a scale factor to the power 3. Talking about area, it's scale factor to the power 2. Let's go to the next question. They want me to simplify this algebraic fraction. And simplifying fractions means get rid of the highest common factor. So I see an x, an x, an x, but the 7 and 21 do not have an x, so I cannot get rid of it. There's only one way of doing it, and this is for 4 points, and that is a lot of points for a relatively easy question in my point of view. Because you know you're going to get this question and you know how to approach it. Because there's only one way of doing it, that is to factorize the numerator, that is to factorize the denominator, and then you will see there is a common factor. Always. So, again, whenever you are given an algebraic fraction with a quadratic, either in the numerator or denominator, then you have to factorize them. Okay? And that's how you're going to get your points. So, that's what we'll do. Let's factorize the numerator first. It's a quadratic, so we can put those brackets there, x and an x. And we're looking for two numbers, multiplied minus 7, and if you add them, 6. And then you just have to try. Well, 7 is a prime number, so it can only be 7 and 1. 7 times 1 is 7. But the multiplication is a negative, so the signs are going to be different. But the addition is a positive 6. That means that it has to be plus 7 minus 1. Sometimes we make a silly mistake with factoring, so we always check. I'm going to expand this. X squared minus x plus 7x, indeed is 6x. 7 times minus 1 minus 7. I'm going to do a similar thing now for the denominator. I'm going to factorize it, but there's just a common factor 3. So 3 bracket x plus 7, and indeed, like I said, then you will see there is a common factor. Always. You can get rid of that common factor. That is what simplifying means. So your answer for 4 points, x minus 1 over 3. There we go. I see a sequence there, question 20. 5 terms of a sequence. Okay, and just looking at it, what is that? 32 to 25 minus 7. 20 minus 7. So you see a term-to-term rule of minus 7. Find the 6th term. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the next one, 4 minus 7. So minus 3. Find the nth term rule. Now the term-to-term rule is minus 7. So what do you write down straight away? Minus 7n. If the term-to-term rule would be plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, you would write down 3n. Okay, but in this case it's minus 7, minus 7, minus 7, minus 7n. And then you look at your first term. Is it minus 7? No. And then you ask yourself the question, okay, but what do I have to add or subtract to go from minus 7 to 32? And then you say, well, I have to add, and how much do you have to add? 39. Because minus 7 plus 39 is going to give you 32. So this is your answer, minus 7n plus 39. Now, we all make mistakes, so we always check this answer for, let's say, term 4. So, minus 7 times 4 is minus 28, plus 39, 11. So now then you are 100% sure that you are correct. Which term is equal to minus 332? You got to equal the nth term rule, so minus 7n plus 39, you equal that to minus 332. And then you solve that equation. So minus 7n equals, I'm a little bit tired now, so I'm going to use my calculator, minus 332 minus 39 equals, and that is minus 371. Okay, so n, if I continue here, equals minus 371 divided by minus 7. So divided by minus 7 in my calculator equals term 53. Well, you know your answer should be a positive because we do not have any negative terms here. Okay, that was question 20. Let's go to the next page. Whenever I see a pyramid like this, I am pretty sure we are about to do some three-dimensional trigonometry. Let's find out. The diagram shows a pyramid on a square base ABCD with diagonals AC and BD of length 8. Yeah, so the entire diagonal is 8. So 4 and 4. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me just put a circle around that 8, that I understand that is the entire length of the diagonal. AC and BD meet at point M, and the vertex P of the pyramid is exactly vertically above M. That's a vertical line. The sloping edges of the pyramid are of length 6, as you can see, 6 there. So all those sloping lengths are 6. Calculate, so you have to show working, calculate the perpendicular height PM of the pyramid. Alright. Then you have to find a right angle triangle in which that height lies. So there we go. PM is, I'll say X, that's P, excuse me, that's M. And then this corner is going to be corner C. MC is of length 4. That's an M, by the way, guys. Sorry, that's my tablet is going a little bit funny. MC is 4 and PC is 6. And we are looking for the length of X. So it's a right angle triangle. We have 2 lengths. We're looking for the third one. We can use Pythagoras theorem. Yeah? A squared plus B squared equals the hypotenuse squared. We know the hypotenuse. Yeah, that is always that length across the 90-degree angle. So 6 squared. And this is going to be 4 squared plus X squared, or X squared plus 4 squared. Doesn't matter. So X is going to be the square root of 6 squared minus 4 squared. Yeah, and that is 36 minus 16. Well, that is 20, of course, I knew that. So the square root of 20 equals, I'm going to write down all my decimals, 4.47213595. So 4.47, corrected to 3 significant figures, 4.47. There you go. And then they ask, what is the angle between a sloping edge and the base of the pyramid? So again, you have to find a plane, a particular right angle triangle in which that angle lies. So between the sloping edge and the base of the pyramid. Well, CM lies is part of the base CM, and PC is the sloping edge. So actually you are talking about this angle. I call it theta. There you go. So trigonometry, finding the angle in right angle triangle. So saw TOA to determine which ratio to choose. So if you sit in your angle, you have the adjacent, you have the hypotenuse, so we're going to we're going to use the cosine. So the cosine of theta is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Then to find the angle, you have to do the inverse, so you're going to do in your calculator, so theta equals, in your calculator, you're going to do shift cos of 4 over 6 equals. And if you round that properly, because I'm just going to round that straight away to 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place, because it's an angle, you get 48.2 degrees. There you go. Last question, I think, question 22. Let's find out what that's about. Ah, beautiful, a Venn diagram. So I'm probably going to shade some stuff, and perhaps some probability is going to be involved. I'm not sure. Let's find out. There's a particular Venn diagram, as you can see, P and Q, and I see some letters. Some of them are shared and some of them are not part of P or Q. Use the information in a Venn diagram to complete the following. P intersecting Q. Okay, so you need to be familiar with the language, and this means in P and in Q, the intersection, so this one. So we're talking about which letters? I and J. I and J. There you go. The complementary set of P or in Q. So everything outside of P or in Q. So it doesn't have to be in outside of P and in Q, no. Everything outside of P or in Q. Well, let's first do everything outside of P. So that is K, M, and N. Okay, so let me write that down. Everything outside of P, K, M, N, or in Q it says. So K, I, J. I already wrote down K, don't have to repeat that. I, J. And some students, they think I, J should not be written down because they are also inside of P. And that is true. However, it is or. So outside of P or in Q. So you have to write them down because they are part of Q. Perhaps you want to put this in alphabetical order if you want. Then we move on. In P or in Q, but then outside of it. And then how many pieces of information? N, the number of information, the amount of information. P or in Q, but then the complementary set. So P or in Q, but then everything outside. So it's M and N. So we do not write down M and N now, we write down 2, because these are 2 pieces of information, M and N. All right. If you're not familiar with the symbols involving regarding Venn diagrams, then please check my website explainingmaths.com, where I show you what those symbols mean in more detail. And then a letter is chosen at random from the set Q. And I already expected a probability question because that's what you get most of the times. At random from set Q. Find the probability that it is also in a set P. So how many letters are also in a set P? Those are 2 out of 3 in total. So that's a chance of 2 out of 3. There you go. That's for 1 point, so there's no working involved, as you can see. Then on the on the Venn diagram, shade the region, the complementary set of P, and in Q. So it has to be outside of P and also in Q. Now what I always suggest is to do small crosses first and then actually shade it. So we do it step by step. What is outside of P? So that all of that is outside of P. And this is outside of P. Okay? So everything outside of P. But it also has to be inside of Q and intersecting with Q. So look at those crosses now. Now you can shade and you can say, okay, if it also has to be in Q, then this is what I shade. And this is not an art lesson, but still you have to, shade it a little bit neatly. There you go. And then you take your eraser and you're going to get rid. I can't do that on my tablet now, by the way. But then you will get rid of all those little crosses you've put there. Okay, so that is the region you should shade. Question D. Use a set notation symbol to complete the statement. F, G, H, ... P. Okay, so the elements F, G, and H, and then the set P. Now, what could you do? Now, if you would make, let's say, another set around F, G, and H, look at that, then we say, well, that is a subset of P, because all those elements, F, G, H, are also part of set P. So the symbol for subset is like this. Yeah, or you can also put a line underneath it, depending, both of it is correct in this case, because a proper subset of just a subset, but it's a subset of P, because all the elements F, G, and H are also inside set P. I believe that was it, guys. Yeah, it is. So that was an entire paper, and I'm not sure how long we spent solving it, but I do know that you have, if you work hard and if you try your best, but don't go too fast, there's no reason for that. Yeah, if you take proper time for each question, you will have plenty of time to finish the exam properly. Okay, so you have 90 minutes, so I think you should aim to finish these exams in about 75 minutes. All right, then you'll have 15 minutes at the end, and then you can go over the exam. You can check if you haven't made any silly mistakes and check that properly. You can check if you have rounded everything properly. Make sure you didn't forget to answer a particular question. All right, then you have those last 15 minutes to do that. Okay, so there's no reason for anybody to stress about these exams. What I say on many occasions is exams are not an opportunity for examiners to find out all the things you don't know. Yeah, we are not trying to find out like, haha, this is wrong and that's wrong. No, an exam is really your opportunity to show everybody what you have learned. Okay, and examiners or when we check exams as teachers, we always give you points. We want you to do well. We know you can do it. We give you points, all right, rather than subtracting points. So we give you points for all the good things you do. So make sure to show as much workings as you can so we can give you points, all right? Fantastic. Now, find me on my website, explainingmaths.com. Again, credit goes to the Cambridge because this is their exam. I just solved it, but these are all their questions. I did not create the questions. I am Mr. John, explainingmaths.com. I wish you a very pleasant day. Bye-bye.